This is the first of two videos we have on case law research this week. In addition to the videos I have recorded for you, I have also posted some links to videos or self-paced tutorials that cover updating using citators on Lexis, Westlaw, and Bloomberg Law. I want to clarify that when I'm talking about citators, I mean the services you would use to update cases. The ones you are probably most familiar with are Keycite on Westlaw or Shepard's on Lexis. Other databases like Bloomberg Law also often have at least a simple citator. For example, the one on Bloomberg Law is called bcite. The vendor videos go over these tools in more detail. Okay, well let's get started with this video. The reading you did in the nutshell focused on the many ways you can find cases relevant to a legal issue. I wanted to reinforce these different approaches to finding relevant cases with this diagram. Oftentimes, researchers start with the method listed at the bottom, full-text searching, but these other methods are also really helpful for finding precedential cases. Some of these methods we've already discussed, such as using secondary sources and annotated statutes to find cases. Another method that I'm sure you've probably used, but you maybe didn't know it had a name, is the one good case method. So in this method, you already have one good case. Maybe you found it using a secondary source or annotated statute, or maybe a colleague mentioned it to you. In any case, you pull that case up. You might find other important cases cited within that good case, or you use a citator to find additional relevant cases that are newer. So that one good case method is very powerful. We're going to talk about the one good case method in connection with citators and topical searching. So topical searching refers mostly to utilizing the WES topic and key number system you read about in the nutshell, but Lexis does have something similar for online searching. There's a demonstration of using this feature in the video on Lexis for Shepard's for Research. So this is just a little more detail on the methods mentioned in the previous slides. So in this one, I'm talking about secondary sources, and it's a reminder of some of the key sources we've talked about for Massachusetts legal research. Just as an example, one of the things we talked about was the Mass Practice series, which as you know is only available on Westlaw, and we talked about some of these other useful secondary sources listed on the slide. This slide looks at using annotated statutes to find cases. Last week, Rick talked about using annotated statutes, and one of the things he covered was looking at the case notes to find cases that have interpreted a statute. And I just wanted to remind you how you can look at the case notes to find some of the most important cases that have interpreted a statute. So this is a key search technique for finding cases when you're researching a legal issue that has a statute on point. And obviously I've just cut the most important parts out of a statute which is Chapter 112, Section 80C on Lexis, which is just the statute itself is only one sentence. And I'm showing you, if you scroll down below, some of the case notes that are available on this version of the annotated statute on Lexis. All right. Let's talk a little bit more about the next method, the one good case method. So the case that I'm going to use is Lee versus Board of Registration in Nursing, and it's one of the decisions collected in the case notes on the previous slide. So you may have found this one good case that way by looking at the annotated statute or by using a secondary source. In any case, we can use this decision to find additional cases. So let's look at this case on Lexis. So the first thing you would do is read the case itself, and within the text of the case there might be references to older decisions that might also be on point that you might want to then go and read. In addition to the cases cited within Lee, you could find newer decisions that cite Lee by using the Shepard service, which is this feature over here on the right and the one that's going to be covered in more detail in the Lexis video. Let's take a quick look at the Lexis headnote system. Online, Lexis has something similar to the WEST key number system that you read about in the nutshell. So in this system, they organize all of the U.S. legal topics in a hierarchy or an outline. So let's just look at one of the head notes here, and I'll show you an example of that. Okay, so here's head note 1 in this case, and we could click on head note 1 to get to it within the case. In addition to pulling out this important point of law and being an easy way to get to it in the case, they've also organized this under their hierarchy of law. And in this case, they've assigned 2 of these topics. For example, this one is healthcare law, and then the narrow subjects, they're getting narrower as it goes down, but business administration, faculty, and personnel licensing, and then finally the general overview under that subtopic. So using these is another way that we can find cases that have been organized by Lexis under the same legal principles. Okay, so that's just a little bit of an overview on Lexis, and as I mentioned, there'll be more in the vendor video. So I wanted to talk about the similar system and the more famous one, the one that's talked about in the reading, the key number system on Westlaw. So we'll look at how you would use topic and key number systems, and we're going to look at that same case, Lee versus Board of Registration in Nursing, but this time we're looking at it on Westlaw. We just looked briefly at the headnotes on Lexis and how Lexis had organized legal issues by topic and assigned those topics to particular headnotes. And we're going to do the same here for the case on Westlaw. Okay, so this is that same case on Westlaw, and if we scroll down past the synopsis of the case, we can see the West headnotes. So again, just like Lexis, these numbers refer to issues of law in the case, and we could click on this number to get to where this issue is discussed in the case. I'm just going to go back. In addition to being a little shortcut to where the issue is discussed in the case, you can also see that they've associated a topic and a key number with this issue. The topic and key numbers relate to the broader key number system West has created that characterizes all of U.S. law by topic and subtopic or key number. So this is really helpful because if we have these topics and key numbers, we can use that to find additional cases that have been assigned the same topic and key number on West, so they discuss the same point of law. So in this case, say we were interested in headnote number 4 and the issue discussed there. The broad topic is health, and the subtopic is obstetricians and midwives. If we click on the little key, we can see where this subtopic fits into this outline under health. So health is the broad topic, and it's also been assigned a number online, which is number 196. And our subtopic has the key number 167. And this key number represents the subtopic obstetricians and midwives. So we can click on this subtopic obstetricians and midwives, and this brings us to other headnotes in other cases, or in this case in our case as well. So all headnotes in all cases in our default jurisdiction, Massachusetts state and federal, that mention this topic and key number. Another way we could use this is to run a Boolean search. We could put in 198K167 in whatever database we are in, say Massachusetts state cases. And that again would pull up all cases that talked about this topic and subtopic or key number. All right, so that is how we would use those topics and key numbers to find additional cases on Westlaw. In the previous slide and also on Westlaw, I showed you how if you have one good case, you can use the topic and key number system. And often that's how we're using it. But there is another way you can use it on Westlaw, and that is if we haven't already found a case, we can use the whole outline of the topic and key number system and find the applicable one on Westlaw. So I'm just going to go to the Westlaw home screen now to show you how to do this. Okay, so I'm on the Westlaw home screen, and if I click here where it says key numbers, oh, and while we're here, I did want to mention one other thing before we do this search. Westlaw recently rebranded, so this research platform that used to be called Westlaw Next, it's now just Westlaw. Although you might see it referenced as Westlaw Next in some of the readings or in the training material still. Okay, so back to using the key number system. So let's click here where it says key numbers. And this is what I would do if I didn't already know a topic and key number, but I wanted to use it in a search. So this brings us to a page with the entire outline of the broad topics of the WES key number system. So I'm just going to do a quick natural language search, and I'm going to put in some keywords for my topic, which is the practice of medicine. I'm just going to put practice, medicine, and midwife. I'll run a quick search there. And what we're getting are the topics and key numbers that are responsive to my search. And you can see the very first one is that same topic and key number that we were working in when we were looking at the Lee case that we just looked at. So the broad topic here is health, and online that's been given an equivalent number of 198. And the subtopic is being given a key number, which is key number 167. And again, we could click on this to find those head notes in the cases that talk about this point of law. And you'll see again, we're getting that Lee versus Board of Registration in Nursing case, and we're actually getting it multiple times because it has more than one head note that have this topic and key number assigned to it. Okay, but that is how we would use it if we didn't already have a case, so that's another option for us. Oh, one other thing, I just wanted to say my jurisdiction defaults to Massachusetts, but if you're not defaulting to Massachusetts, you can change that right here. Okay, so that's using the outline of the topic and key number system. Finally, I wanted to talk briefly about full text searching. A lot of the tips that Rick gave you last week on searching for statutes are going to be applicable as well for cases. So you can limit by jurisdiction and as appropriate by court, and then run a broad search and then narrow using the search within features if you get too many results. So that's what I did here. I ran a fairly broad search, although I did use terms and connectors. I wanted the concept of the practice of medicine and it being either authorized or not authorized under law. So that was the search that I ran here. And the reason I didn't add midwife is because I didn't want it to be too particular. If I hadn't gotten some responsive cases on the first few pages, I could use that feature search within, which Rick covered last week. I did, though, get my Lee case again right at the top. So I just wanted to reiterate that this is a good search technique, especially if you're at a firm that charges, either the firm gets charged or perhaps your client gets charged per search. So that's a reminder of the search within results feature. I wanted to give you a few tips on citators. One, you have to remember to read the case in the portion of the case that's saying your case is no longer good law. So even if you have a red flag, that only means that the case is not good law for one point of law, or may not be good law for one point of law. And cases can have multiple points of law in them. So you don't want to dismiss a case that perhaps you could rely on. Perhaps it's still good law for the point that you're looking at. I want you, when you're running your searches this week, to take a look at the different platforms and notice the different features. For example, there's definitely differences between KeyCite and Shepard's and BSite on Bloomberg Law, even to the differences that you could have editorial differences. So, for example, a case that has a red flag on Shepard's may only have yellow treatment on Westlaw, for example. Okay, finally, for free resources, you can create your own citator by searching for the case citations in a database, or a citator for statutes by running a search for that statute in, for example, a free database like Google Scholar. My final tip for you is about citation. Rick spent quite a bit of time giving you some tips on how to cite statutes, but I think Probably you're more used to citing cases and they're a little more straightforward. I did want to point out this Blue Book Guide for Law Students posted on the Law Library website. It's under Student Services. And the one thing I wanted to remind you of is if you're submitting something to a court, you want to look at the court rules for how they want the cases cited. Okay, so that's it for the first video.